was making my builds, I was always focusing on one specific certain core skill that would do one specific certain action. In some cases, it would be rapid fire to make a turret build. Some other cases, it would be my Sub-Zero build that would focus on flurry, because I was determined to make just one core skill function to work, because I would then find a substitute for whatever that core skill would like for example AoE or focus damage. And now that I have tried to combine everything, I realize that I have made the most powerful and broken thing that I have ever made in my Diablo, and this is just so much fun, it's just so amazing, and you're going to be dealing millions and millions of damage. So there's going to be two variants of this build. I would like to call it the Ice version and the Shadow version, aka the Sub-Zero version and the Noob-Sivet version. What is the difference between them? Well, the Noob-Sivet version is going to deal more damage. You are going to be using this one, although on lower levels. Now, why is that? The Sub-Zero version is a little bit more tanky, doesn't deal as much damage as the Noob-Sivet version, but it's going to have a lot of more tankiness because of the crowd control. So the Sub-Zero version, you are going to be able to use it on dungeons that are 20, 30 levels above you, and there's not going to be any problem because everything is always going to be frozen around you. So there's not going to be a problem about that. You are still going to have to take care of not getting one-shotted and choosing your dungeon specifically, but at the end of the day, it's just going to kill things very fast, so fast, and it's also going to have the CC potential. Whereas if you want to level up faster, if you want to be doing dungeons that are like just 5 levels above you, 4 levels above you, or dungeons your level, then the best choice is the Noob-Sivet version, because it deals more DPS, because it kills enemies, low enemies faster. It just kills them faster, it's just that it doesn't have as much the survivability that the Sub-Zero version would have on higher dungeons. That being said, let's go real fast through the skill points that we are going to be using, and I'll try to be as brief as possible, not to waste your time. Like always, we're going to be using our combo specialization, and we're going to be using as our basic our puncture, which is going to be working in a synergy with flurry, that every time we hit an enemy with puncture, flurry is going to make everything around it vulnerable. This is going to be our nuclear damage. Whenever you use rapid fire, provided that you have imbuement on your skill and you use rapid fire with your combo points depending on the resistances and the critical damage that you have on your build, if you're level 100, you're going to be able to be dealing between 2 million and 5 million damage per cast. It's just going to melt enemies, and you're going to be using this bad boy just against specific enemies that are giving you problems. That 90% of the time you're going to be using flurry, imbued flurry, and that is how you're going to be crowd controlling, killing AoE damage and that stuff. But whenever you fight against that specific elite that is giving you problem, the specific elite that has so much health, that has the health passive bonus, that it's just giving you issues, you're going to be using rapid fire, and it's just going to kill them in one tap. Just one tap is going to take for rapid fire to kill them. That works mainly on bosses as well, usually 2 or 3 taps for rapid fire. Sometimes you will even one-shot them with this setup. We're also going to have Sturdy and Siphoning Strikes, just to have that little extra tankiness and healing and such. Now, for Shadow Step, we're going to be using that mostly to get us CC situations. Like always, Rogue is very squishy. You're healing sometimes, you're healing at all times, and whenever they CC you, whenever you stop dealing damage, whenever you're not CCing the enemy, you are going to be killed. So we're going to be using Shadow Step as means of getting unstoppable. We're also going to be grabbing Weapon Mastery, and then we're also going to be grabbing Malice, which is going to increase the damage that we deal to vulnerable enemies. Enemies are always going to be vulnerable because of the synergy that we have right here, and some certain Paragon skills that we're going to have later on. Now this is going to be the change, this is going to be the swap. This is how the variant is going to work. Right here, as you can see, I have my Sub-Zero setup because it's my favorite. Yes, it takes a little bit more time to kill enemies, but I usually like to run higher dungeon levels. That's just me. You are going to clear dungeons faster with the Noob-Sivet version, and the only thing that you would have to do to use the Noob-Sivet version is just take away all of the points right here from this place, take them all away, and then you only need to place them instead right here, following this specific branch that I am showing you right here. The reason for that being is that this is going to contribute a little bit more to your DPS, and this one is going to contribute a little bit more with your DPS as well. So this is the path that you should be taking. Then finally, we have spare room for an ultimate skill. I wouldn't say that it is a mandatory thing. I wouldn't say that you actually need it. It's just that if you wanted to, you could most definitely take away these points and place them into some passive of your choice. I have that one because I think that's cool, but I almost never use it. You could also be using Rain of Arrows or Shadow Clone or whatever you fancy yourself for your build or how you look, but trust me, this is not going to be a mandatory thing. This is not going to be just something that you are going to need. Now, in here, there's also a little bit of a variation as well. This is going to give you a little bit more tankiness, a little bit of more DPS with your tankiness. But this one is going to work a little bit better with the Sub-Zero build as well. So if you want to go with the Sub-Zero path, which I wouldn't advise because we're using aspects that are working in synergy with this one, overall I would just select Victimize. But if you wanted to, you also have attack speed when you are using the Sub-Zero thing, because you have crowd control enemies 100% of the time. So this basically grants you a 30% increase damage, so that's 30% increased damage and 10% attack speed, so it's a little bit more of a DPS, but it's up to your preference. Just have in mind that you are going to need to have the Sub-Zero build for this thing to work. Before we continue, though, a little word from today's sponsor. I have to work, you have to work, we have to work full-time shifts. You have family, you have kids, you have friends, you have social. We don't really have time for grindy games like Diablo anymore, not as much as we would like, but we actually do want to play the endgame, the high-level characters and whatnot. So DVNG, it's going to be a place where you're going to be able to purchase this kind of services where they're going to power level up your characters, or maybe you want to have a new account for them to level it up on your behalf while you're doing other stuff. And they have all kind of games like Diablo, Destiny 2, The Division, World of Warcraft, Outriders and whatnot, and there's always going to be someone very kind in here to answer all of your questions in case you have any questions. So let's go over Diablo and then go to Diablo builds. We're going to go to Veteran. It's going to tell you here everything that it is going to be unlocked, like the Altars of Lilith, gold, levels, the legendary aspects, the build that is going to have, and it's also going to give you the amount of time that it is going to take for them to deliver this thing to you. You can also use my promotional code RPJames to get a 15% discount in every single purchase that you make with these guys. Let's continue with the video. Now, as for the legendary aspects, I have two different settings right here, two different setups right here. One is going to be the ultimate hardcore thing with the ultimate gear possible, and then we're going to have a budget version. Now, the ultimate one is going to require for you to have Frostburn, Condemnation, and Penitent Griefs. And this is focused as well. It is going to help the noob-sided version as well, but this is going to be focused for the Sub-Zero version of the thing. Frostburn is going to freeze enemies. The synergy that is going to be working in here is that the previous one that I have on my cold imbuements, we have increased critical damage against frozen enemies, and we're always going to be freezing enemies, so we're always going to have that extra critical damage. But this could also alleviate a little bit the noob-sided incapability of CCing enemies, so that is something nice as well. Condemnation is basically, if you get a perfect roll, it's just basically going to give you insta cast of flurry if you have the specialization, if you're doing your combo points. But it's also going to increase from 20 to 30% depending on the perfect roll that you have. It's going to increase your core skill damage, attack speed, so it's basically a must. You should always be hunting for this thing. If you have this thing, you're pretty much good to go. On our main weapon, our two-handed weapon, we're going to be having the aspect of the encircling blades to increase the damage of our flurry. Then we are going to have our vengeful aspect on our dual-wielded weapon as well, because we're always dealing damage to vulnerable enemies. When we're going to have aspect of corruption, we're always going to be dealing damage to vulnerable and imbued enemies. And also we're going to be using our rapid aspect on our ring to increase the attack speed of our basic skills to be able to cast flurry flurry that much more faster, or to be able to cast rapid fire that much more faster. And then the rest of it is just going to be the defense, the sustainability of the build, aspect of disobedience. I like to have that one on the amulet because it increases your armor by 75%. Then we have the aspect of might and protector, both on chest and helmets, mainly because they deal that much survivability when you're dealing damage to both elites, and also when you are just dealing basic damage, which is going to increase your defense, your damage resistance by 10 to 20% depending on the role that you have right there. And then the aspect of the cruel sustenance, which is going to heal you by using the victimize and the explosions of shadow stuff, and yeah. Now this is the budget version. Right here, well, you can also change the penitent glyphs for something else, but the aspect of the expectant, it's going to replace the frostburn. The aspect of the expectant is going to increase your damage by 30%, provided that you're dealing your proper combo points damage. And then the Edgemaster's aspect is just basically going to give you that 20 extra % damage, provided that you always have your maximum energy at maximum. And yeah, we're always going to have our energy at maximum because we're always using first our combo, so we're giving room, we're not spamming our skills, and since we're not spamming our skills, we're always going to have our energy at maximum. So this is going to give you 15%, 50% extra damage on your build. Raw power, just 50% extra damage, whereas this is going to give you 40% extra damage, but it's also going to give you the potential of being able to cast that 40% extra damage with one tap of your weapon thanks to condemnation, and also it's going to give you that much extra damage to the frost version of the build because you have increased critical damage against frozen enemies. But also to have in mind that you're going to be freezing enemies just by tapping just basic skills before you actually use cold imbuement. So this is your go-to at the end of the day. This is the ultimate thing that you want to have. And then finally, the Paragon board that you need to follow. You shouldn't be worrying that much about legendary aspects. They're actually quite nice, but your real focus in here should always be increasing your damage, your overall damage, not your marksman skill damage, not your cutthroat skill damage, but your damage in general, meaning the damage of your imbuements, the damage of your physical damage, the critical strike damage. So you should always be striving to getting the glyphs and to also to increase the damage. As you can see, core skill damage we have right there, our path took us right there. We have in here non-physical damage, which increase the damage of our imbuements. We have Eldritch Bounty, which is, it's not going to be a mandatory thing. I just happened to actually get it because I was following the path of the damage right here, and to get all the way over there, that was the faster route to take it, but did not need to actually take that one. You also have the vulnerable damage right here, and your glyphs should always be focusing as well on damage. So for example, this one, Canny, increase non-physical damage. Combat increases your critical strike damage. Exploit increases the vulnerable damage. This is the one that you might want to be swapping depending on your needs. But you also have Chip, which is going to increase your overall physical damage. So for example, you might want to change Ranger to Closer depending on whether you feel that you like the damage a little bit more with the Flurry. I like to have Ranger. I like to have a little bit of range damage, mainly because I like to nuke the bosses. Whenever I find those elites, I want to have a little bit of that extra edge to be able to kill them in one tap, which is going to give me that Ranger. And Flurry on itself has already enough damage to be able to be controlling everything on the battlefield. So this is a matter of personal preference. Like I said, you can either have Ranger or you can either have Closer. And then final thoughts, gameplay loop and whatnot. Do have in mind that you can build your combo points by hitting objects on the map. So whenever you actually start heading for the fight, first try to build your combo points, especially if you're going to be doing those dungeons that are 20 or 30 levels above you. That way, once you get to the enemies, you're only going to have to tap one flurry, and it's going to freeze enemies, and it's not going to give them time to respawn back to you. Again, the ultimate skill, you're not going to be using it that much, and what you're basically going to be doing is build your combo points, do flurry, do your imbued flurry, kill everything around you, or CC everything around you, And whenever you find enemies that are elites that are being annoying, that they have a lot of health and whatnot, just basically try to hunt them down by using Shadow Step, or just by focusing directly into them, and just build your combo points, and then just one tap. One tap. Usually, ideally, I would advise for you to do that one tap while you are imbued, because it's just going to one-shot every single elite that you find out there. And it makes me happy, because it's very broken. Anyways, if you like the content, like and really super appreciate it, and also you today, you're a gorgeous and beautiful person. You are indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. I will see you goddamn gorgeous and beautiful people in the next one. Have a beautiful day, and goodbye.